Well, first I'll just tell you, this is what the Democrats always do. They called George Bush the same things. They called Joe Biden said Mitt Romney would return African Americans to chains, to slavery.
I remember.
And they called John McCain Hitler. They called Mitt Romney Hitler. Now they called Donald Trump. This is the classic Democratic playbook. There are still Americans alive today, me, whose lives were actually touched by the Nazis. My mother, her brother, and her parents fled the Nazis in August of 1939. My family thinks it's the last ship that crossed the Atlantic Ocean, the last passenger ship, before the Nazis start to sink every ship that crossed the Atlantic Ocean through their U-boats. This is my family's story. We had to flee the Nazis. And for Donald Trump to now be called Hitler, to be called a fascist, to be compared to a Nazi, is the lowest of the lows by Kamala Harris. I don't know to whom she is appealing. This is an American election between two candidates who may not like each other. But for Harris to stoop to the low of saying that Donald Trump is the equivalent of those who caused the Holocaust, who killed millions, not to mention who killed millions of veterans who had to fight the Nazis for freedom to win. She's saying that's who Donald Trump is? She didn't win a single vote in her primary. There was no primary. She was put into power by the Democrats. Donald Trump won a contested primary. He beat other Republicans fair and square in an election. He likely is going to beat Kamala Harris fair and square in an election. They don't like losing, so they call him a Nazi. Donald Trump is actually the essence of democracy, but nobody in American politics should compare anybody to the Nazis. That's who my family had to flee from.
But Kamala is labeling more than half of the country as the enemy combatants, and she's calling them all fascists and Nazis, okay? But she's a fascist, okay? She's a fascist. How can Kamala Harris, and I don't use the name too much because nobody knows who the hell I'm talking about when I say Harris. If I said, how come Harris, and people look around, who is Harris? Kelly, they say, who is Harris? How can Kamala Harris lead America when she probably hates Americans because that's her ideology? She destroyed San Francisco. She's a very incompetent person running for president who stole the nomination from crooked Joe Biden and who's losing in the polls. She's losing in the polls. The fake news doesn't want to tell you that. The fake news doesn't want to tell you that. That's why we have to make it too big to rig, please. Too big to rig. And she and her group of very bad people are truly a threat to democracy. They're a threat. And I'm running a campaign of solutions to save our country. Kamala is running a campaign of demonization and hate. She really does. She's a hater. She's a hater.